Okay, well, I guess I can talk about the store for a bit, or start there.
Yeah.
My dad came to San Francisco in the 70s and wanted to be a book salesman, or was a book salesman, and started a business on Haight Street in 1977. It was a bookstore on Haight and Ashbury. Two businesses, the bookstore and the t-shirt store.
Okay.
And, you know, it's in this neighborhood, in this spot that is historic, and it used to be a really bad neighborhood, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
When my dad started, it was like very violent. My parents lived above the store for a while, and it was when they had my sister, who was, born in 79, so she was really little, and it was a rough neighborhood. So in the night, like, basically there was Bridge Housing, which still exists, created Parkview Commons, which is like this weird, like, anomaly essentially, because nothing, it's never been recreated in the city. It's like this place right across from Kezar Stadium. And since that, like, housing community has been just like, it's just insane how many like friends and like sisters and moms I have. It's like a lot of co-parenting going on. And
Realistic.
it's kind of scary to me too, like, or sometimes I feel really stuck because I have this place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love my apartment, and I don't really want to leave, but I've thought about grad school in other cities, and I'm like, actually, like, it's just like not an option to me because I can't let my apartment go, which is so silly, but it's real.
True. It's like, what if you were to let it go, you would never get it back.
I would never get it back.
Like, they'd come in here, they probably wouldn't even do much, and like, quadruple the rent, and then it would be the place.
It was really particularly hard watching my friend Hillary get evicted a couple years ago, just to go into that, because she was like, whoa, like, you know, you hear about it, and maybe it's a close friend, maybe it's not, but like, I am an actual victim of, like, I am being displaced in my city, had to move to Alameda. Thing has gone up. There's no rent control on commercial real estate.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So just because we've rented from this place doesn't mean it's like the same rent we've been paying, because we don't own the building. Yeah. We have a great landlord. That being said, we've like lucked out in that way. Because my dad started as a bookstore with him, and then he was like, why don't you do you want to expand? We have this space, and totally like helped facilitate all that. And so, you know, extremely grateful to Norm Larson. But yeah, the neighborhood's changed all the time. It's like, businesses move in and out. There's a ton of empty storefronts, which is just beyond me, because I'm like, don't landlords get it? Yeah. They could just lower the rent probably and find people to come in.
My commitment to like doing this work as a career, I think, is really linked to that, like, straddling. Like, I saw that my cousins who lived in Fruitvale, like, didn't, my access to like quality schools, my access to like supportive, you know, growing up in like a supportive 2-parent household, my literacy skills were all directly related to my ability to be upwardly mobile, to go to college in ways that they were not afforded. They went to shitty schools. They were not afforded the same opportunities to have a fair chance.
And it's like you have the same amount of potential.
And I saw a lot of my exposure to both sides of those from such a young age, like, I think pushed me to be really critical and like thinking about like, why this and why not that, and why do they get this over here and not over there. Like, I saw those things ever since I was born. And so going to school, I was able to like understand the structural forces that made those circumstances possible, but I also very much like concretized them and was like, oh, I've seen this.
You're like, here's an example.
It's like, this is like an example. And so a lot of my work, especially like I did a lot of work in education, was just like wanting to reconcile those gaps and the kind of perpetuation of educational inequity that I think education is really what separated a lot of my family from me.
Yeah, and that's...
but how my own like internal map of San Francisco has changed, but and how to preserve those stories too has been a lot of the motivation for my volunteer work with the mapping project, and just trying to hold those narratives. I think Allensworth also like I think something that I think it's like definitely the destruction of the demise of the town is definitely something we can learn from. And also like I think something I'm always really activated by and thinking about that history is like the importance of like not only like the like radicalism that I think I'm rooted in and like that I come from, just to like think of Black people getting together and like imagining a world that like didn't exist yet, and the power of that, and like that is so much of what movement work is. Like a lot of like Afrofuturists like talk about how like social justice,
radical dreaming,
and like that, and it's like really interesting because I think Afrofuturism is like having kind of like this like trendy resurgence right now. But just to like remind like that there were like Afrofuturists back in the day that like
were imagining
these like fucking people who were slaves like got together and were like, let's start a town and let's like sustain ourselves and like sustain our like own shit, own our own shit, and like teach each other and educate each other, and like just the capacity of having to like imagine that world, I think is something that
in that world too, in that time, to even imagine, like now we think of like, okay, what does freedom look like to us, but like literally to like not even have a concept of freedom, say, you know what, this kind of blows, we don't like doing this, let's just go be free.
Exactly. And like that's the challenge I think that we face too, is just to try to like imagine and create the communities that we're fighting to preserve a San Francisco that we hold
as simple
true to us.
Right now is like Dolores Park.
Exactly.
Like we're fighting to like sit on grass.
Exactly.
My name is Nina Reyes Rosenberg. My full name is Nina Raquel Reyes Rosenberg. I was born at California Pacific Medical Center. My family was living in Noe Valley when I was born, and then we moved to Forest Hill when I was 3 years old. My parents came from very different places. My mom grew up in poverty in like rural Mexico, and my dad grew up in the suburbs of Rochester, New York. My parents have very different value systems, and like eventually they got divorced when I was 12. So like our family growing up, like I kind of grew up going to Mexico, seeing the way my mom's family lived with like a very different set of cultural values than like my dad's family. Jewish, and I had a bat mitzvah. Like being Latina and like identifying as like a woman of color has been like a really kind of mixed bag for me. I definitely pass as white, and like when I was little, people would think my mom was like my nanny, and not looking like my mother has been a source of a lot of just like confusion and pain for me. Like I'm an artist, but I think in a lot of ways I'm like a very like the artist trope that most fits who I see myself as is like the tortured artist.
Yeah.
And like I'm a person living with bipolar disorder, and like that means I'm not psycho, like I'm depressed most of the time. What drives my art is like as a form of communication. Like I've never felt like communication is like my strong suit. I always feel like I do my best communication when I can make something and like show it to someone. People don't always follow like my train of thought. Like there's always like a million ideas swimming around in my brain, and for me to actually talk to someone, I'm just like fishing around for like the first thing that I can grab onto and like throw it out at them. I've been told a lot that people can see me thinking, and with art it's just like, I don't know, it's just like this release where like whatever shape this idea or emotion comes out in, like it's coming out in ways that I can't always articulate verbally.
Totally my experience is like most of my art is created in some sort of either manic collapse or some sort of like necessitated by a depressive state.
I feel like I play with that a lot in my work, is like the idea of like sugar-coated suffering. Okay, the world sucks, but let's laugh about it.